Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the February and March 2022 listening sessions for the California Truth and Healing Council. We have general listening sessions this week, with the first having taken place on Monday from 1 to 2:30, and then today, right now, from 6 to 7:30. The council will hold its regular business meeting of the Governing Council on Friday at 1 p.m. We encourage you all to attend the meeting Friday to engage directly with the Governing Council members. My name is Christina Snyder, and I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Homo Indians and the Tribal Advisor for Governor Gavin Newsom. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that the land I'm joining you from is the ancestral homelands of the Patwin peoples. I'm now going to briefly walk through some of the logistics for today's session. First, we are recording this listening session, and it's available for public participation via Zoom and dial-in. The recording and summary notes will be available on the CTHC meeting page and the blog when they're ready. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates, including listening session recordings and the listening session summary documents, are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of the Tribal Advisor on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. And we may go over that website because it's been recently updated to, later today as well. If you've not already done so, we'd appreciate if you could update your name to let us know who you are. And as we get into the discussion portion of today's session, we'd appreciate if those that are on camera or those that are comfortable could go on camera. We're going to start with brief introductions of those of you who have joined us. And then as always, we'll dive into a quick overview to get everyone up to speed on recent updates. And then we'll go into the listening and discussion portion of today's convening. If you'd like to speak at any point, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're using the Zoom app, you should be able to raise your hand using the app controls, but you can also use Alt-Y in Windows or Option-Y on Mac to raise or lower your hand. If you've dialed in, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9. And you can also unmute your line by pressing *6. You can email written comments to info@catruthandhealing.com at your convenience as well. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind participants that all of our council members, council staff, and many of you are members of the population seeking collective healing in this space. So I ask that you engage with the council, our office, and each other with respect and with your whole heart and healing mindset. Many of us doing this work are navigating systems that were not built for us to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of patience and emotional integrity, and we're all doing our best to make strides in these spaces. So thank you again for joining us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Loretta, I think, first for introductions, and then we'll go to the council members who are in attendance if they have any opening remarks. Loretta?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Loretta Miranda. I am Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor and Special Counsel for the Governor's Office. I'm joining you from the ancestral homelands of the Cahuilla people. I am Serrano Cupeño, a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, and happy to see you all here tonight. And I will turn it over to Council Member Bojorquez.
Mishi Sorbeto, Incatecarak Isaac. Good evening. I'm Isaac Bojorquez. I'm Ohlone Cosanoan. I'm a member of Kakuntaruk Band of Ohlone Cosanoan Indians of the Big Sur Rancheria. I just want to welcome everybody here tonight. It's always good to see everybody, and I'm here to listen in with you all. Thank you. Shururu.
Thank you. And I think that's it for council members. We've also got Michael Park on from our office, who keeps Loretta and I sane and organized. And if you need anything, like you'd like to meet with us, or you have any comments, questions, concerns, please feel free to message him directly and we can set up a time to chat. I'm now going to let folks who want to introduce themselves or say a few words, or if you've thought of anything that you'd like to bring today to this space, please go ahead and unmute your line at this time. Or alternatively, if you're not comfortable speaking to the group, you can also put notes in the chat, introduce yourself in the chat, put any links in the chat you like, and we'll continue to try to address those questions as it makes sense. Robert,
Mo. Oh, very good. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name
what
is
an entrance.
I'm a tribal member of the Torres Martinez Desert Kuya Indians. I'm also the brand spanking new elder in residence at California State University, San Bernardino, and I'm on the subcommittee for education on the Truth and Healing Council. So if you have any educational issues or questions, put them in the chat, or if my two lovely ladies here will let us chat, we'll chat. But anything dealing with education, I'll be happy to see if I have an answer, or I could look into it for you guys. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Robert. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group at this time? Okay, I'm not going to volunteer anyone, but I did want to mention if Robert or Loretta, if either of you, to definitely put you on the spot, would like to do a quick readout of today's hearing and just some thoughts and impressions from the hearing that Assemblymember Ramos and the Select Committee had this morning, please feel free to give us a quick update.
I'll let Loretta go first.
I was going to tell you to go first now. Yeah, so today Assemblymember Ramos and the Native American Select Committee had a hearing on the history of Native American students in the California education system. I was able to listen into the majority of it, and there were a couple of great panels. The first was regarding residential schools, and there were some speakers from Sherman Indian High School that provided some information about both the historical context and Sherman as it is today and the students that they serve. The second panel was regarding UC Hastings School of Law and the renaming of that institution, because as we are aware, it is grounded, that individual is responsible for the genocide of multiple different groups of, and let's see, I say we, but I was listening in, I didn't actually participate. So that panel, there's a couple of Yuki descendants and enrolled members discussing the history of that atrocity. And also we heard from President Russ from the Round Valley tribe, and he provided more context as well. There was some great public comment regarding the this movement that's happening right now, and the potential names that this institution could be renamed as. And we also heard from non-Native folks that were graduates of UC Hastings that also had very strong feelings that that renaming this institution is the correct thing to do, to start to begin to address these wrongs and try to move forward in the right way. And let's see, we also heard from the California Indian Tribal College, which I think Robert would be able to probably provide more context on that. So I'll swing it back to you in a second. But a lot of issues were brought up, especially regarding the funding and the accreditation of those institutions. And I think, I don't know the date for the next hearing, but it was a very, in my opinion, a good hearing, and to be able to have these conversations at this level. I'll turn it over to Robert to fill in the spaces I missed.
Well, the spaces you missed, I don't think you did, to be honest. I didn't really have a chance to hear the whole session. I think I listened to about 40 minutes of it. I was on campus running around with faculty and other individuals getting acclimated again to what they want me to do and what I would rather do. But what we look at in terms of Sherman, at least Sherman's there, and it's tribally run now. The board is all local and Indians from Arizona and Nevada. So that's a plus. I did start my teaching career there at Sherman back a long time ago, and they've come a long way. and again, the one item that, I kind of took away from, I did take away from there, is that the lack of, everybody knows that we're still here. Even at CSUSB, there's a hard time to get Indians out there to say, we got to make ourselves known. We got to make ourselves present to let students at the universities and colleges know that, we have a purpose, and, we're still here. And that's just the start of what the Truth and Healing is doing. And as I mentioned before, is that, we as educators, that's our job. And again, Christina and Loretta know that I'm pushing for as many Indian students, California and American Indians, to become teachers. Because again, with ethnic studies, there's 2% of teachers in California that are Indian, and who's going to teach that component? And now I'm just coming to realize that individuals who are non-Indian can sympathize, but they can't empathize with us. We've gone through our own historical trauma. We've gone through, what our grandparents went through in terms of boarding schools or relocation. And then again, as we look at where we're going to go from here, and that's what we're trying to do with Assemblymember Ramos's AB 1554, to put more California Indian history in the social justice history framework. And again, that's where our main push is, trying to get that bill to be through the assembly and then as legislation. So, and again, we had the subcommittee on education. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm going to be. We only had 3 people there, and so it's just like, me and Council Member Giovanetti had a great time talking about the article, the Kui as a catcher, and but again, look at the whole aspect of education. I think, well, since I'm an ex-teacher, I still am a teacher, that's I think where we should go. But again, the other subcommittees, need to be there, and Loretta can let us know that we should have one for disabled veterans, and that was a big push. So I think that's a good idea. So and then I'll let you guys go, and because my little puppy is getting really aggravated at something. Anyway, so I'll let you continue with the meeting. I'll chime in later. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Really appreciate it. And one thing too that I think is going to be important for this whole process is those remedial recommendations, and what feels meaningful and what feels like there needs to be a package of things that need to be done. Because I think in the conversation that's happening around Hastings, a lot of the issue circles on the fact that yes, the name needs to be changed, but it needs to be changed and this, and it can't just be like a one and done and then there's nothing else that happens, because this legacy has created a problem that's ongoing and continues and persists today. So there's been discussions there about, potential support for descendants of Round Valley in terms of, legal development, different clinics, different court systems, PL 280, just building out statutes, things like that. But that's one instance that I think we may be asking Round Valley and Hastings to speak to this council specifically about how that process has gone, because it's been, I think, like 10 years that they've been talking. And some of the issue that I've heard that they're seeing on a daily basis is that, it's the type of things that tend to prevent us from getting changes happening, is because we're disagreeing with each other. And so I think what really could be meaningful that comes out of this process is how we figure out how to mediate that stuff but amongst each other before, we're trying to ask for different things across each other, and then the people who are there with the power to make changes just throw up their hands and walk away because it's confusing. So I think it'll be really important for the council itself to be thinking through, what feels meaningful, and the community itself to think about what feels meaningful and what do we need to push for, and what do we feel like is really just a box checking exercise, and what feels like, something that's actually a meaningful step forward. So I'll stop soapboxing. Does anyone have any thoughts or anything else they'd like to add? I know we have a couple folks that just joined as we were having this conversation. So if anyone would like to introduce themselves also. We have Councilmember Harper, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, just open Meekantoish. I'm here to listen. So thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone else would like to introduce themselves at this time, you can do it in the chat, or you can go off mute and say a couple words too if you'd like.
Hi, Nancy and Tony Gonzalez from West, who knows I'm interested in these things, had sent me an email alert just very last minute. I just saw it there and I thought, oh, good. And I'm really glad this is a topic. I'm very supportive of California Indian peoples getting more of what they need, and also for the non-Indian people in California to be more aware of California Indian peoples and of the existence of the different tribes. And I'm liking in some of the universities, they're encouraging the languages being taught and such. That's very exciting to me. I was born in San Diego and have lived in the Bay Area for a lot of years, and 78. So I love this whole land area, and I really want to see the peoples who know so much more about it to have the visibility and the space and the access to whatever they can think of would be useful for them, because I know it'll benefit everybody else just a whole bunch more than what we've got here now. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I'll put my contact information in the chat too. Thank
Great.
you. I'm glad you're doing this, and that I'm happy to be invited.
Thank you for joining.
Welcome. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group or say a few thoughts or words at this time? Chairman Potter, I feel like you keep wanting to say something. So.
I'm trying to get my dinner out of my teeth. But good evening, everybody. I'm Chairman Jack Potter Jr., Chairman of Redding Rancheria. I've been on our tribal council for 22 years now. And I think this council is very well needed. You know, there is a lot of healing that needs to happen in California from the very first action in California. I am actually a descendant of one of those massacres where my great-great-great-grandmother was in indentured servitude. And, you know, I guess the people that killed her parents and then became her owners, because of that action, I'm still here. And so I guess I'm kind of grateful in a sense that they indentured her, never killed her, but you know, healing needs to happen. You know, California is a very unique state because treaties were negotiated with all California people, but then because of gold and certain things, the state jumped in ahead of time and became a state, and the treaties were never ratified. Then you have all of our unrecognized relatives, you know, that, you know, it's not fair to them that they are unrecognized and stuff because of that action. And then the Rancheria Act was established to try to rectify that, but then only certain people became members, leaving out large swaths of our relatives. And, you know, healing needs to happen, things need to be rectified. And hopefully out of this, that something federally happens, and maybe, you know, a simple bill could happen that says all California Indians that are petitioning receive federal recognition or something, and the government do the right thing and actually add more money into the pot so don't create hardships where tribes are. That's one of the reasons why California tribes, you know, are against other tribes getting federal recognition, because the federal government still fails to uphold their end of the deal and put more money in health dollars and education and everything. They keep the same pot of money and expect us all, and as they add tribes in, it's like diminishes the resources that come to the tribes that already have recognition. So it'd be nice if they did a bill or something that recognized all California tribes, and then provided, you know, a spending bill also that said, okay, we're bringing 60 tribes in and each tribe gets 5 million or whatever, and put that into the spending bill. So.
Thank you, really appreciate that. Louise, would you like to speak?
Hello, this is Louise Miranda Ramirez, Tribal Chairwoman for Ohlone, Costano, and Estland Nation. And I'd just like to thank Chairman Potter for his information. It's important for us as a non-recognized tribe when we know who we are. My ancestors were the only ones mentioned by name from the Sur Rancheria. And so we did have a rancheria, and little by little it was taken from us. And we are not, like I said, federally recognized. And it was really nice to hear you, Chairman Potter, acknowledge that many of our non-recognized tribes are still here. And we can prove it, and we know who we are, and yet the government continues to ignore us. So thank you. We would say Nima Siyanea Pasaleki. Thank you.
You're welcome. I will always acknowledge all my people. Every one of us, we are all California people, and we all dealt with the genocide, all the atrocities and everything, and we need to have each other's backs.
Thank you. Thank you both. Any other comments before we go into some of the updates and some of the information? And there's a couple of things in the chat as well, and some contact information. Okay. Chairman, would you like to speak?
Before we started moving on, just because we did get into the briefing on the education component, I'm curious, and I've been pushing it in the school district and where my kids go to school, because they started a whole subcommittee within the school district regarding ethnic studies. And I keep saying, why aren't you reaching out? I've actually even provided Loretta them your contact information, saying California Truth and Healing is doing some stuff. Assemblyman Ramos is doing some stuff. There's other groups that are working towards righting a lot of wrongs. And rather than have a whole lot of different hands creating or trying to better the wheel that's already there, I want to make sure that communication is happening. And so as a parent, and not overstepping boundaries, how can I make sure that my school district actually gets connected and starts working within the right ways without overstepping my boundaries?
Well, I don't know what you mean by overstepping your boundaries, but you can always let us know what school district it is, and we can always contact them just based on an anonymous tip, if that's something that you're interested in having some of us pursue. And I'm sure Robert is about to volunteer himself too.
Yeah, I have my my professional right here next to me. My wife, who's on the California Teachers Association State Council, and also the chairman of the American Indian Alaska Native Caucus for our union. You can't overstep your boundaries. You're a parent, and they're just confused. I mean, there's a disconnect between what is happening in Indian Ed and how the districts are going to interpret it. So yeah, especially with ethnic studies, they're just not ready for it. When we found out that the ethnic studies program was written, 3 years ago, that there was no consultation for California Indians, none whatsoever, American Indians, none whatsoever. And so I think Assemblyman Ramos asked us to come in and help look at the curriculum, and it was just terrible. And so, my wife and I have been writing curriculum for ethnic studies, and then also hopefully for that AB 1554. And again, you can see how confused they are with Riverside Unified School District and what happened down at North High School with the trig teacher donning a paper-made headdress and running around the classroom, just chanting trig. I don't know, something you can remember trig language with. And so, they just don't know what to do yet. So, because there's something brand new. Ethnic studies is just on the board in terms of the education, in terms of the curriculum is like, I'm not even 2 years old, I don't think. There is a lack of curriculum. They got to pick and choose, and they got to be real careful what kind of curriculum they choose. And again, we're always last. We have no teachers. We have people that could design curriculum, but they've never been in the classroom. And that's what my wife and I see, that you got to be real careful Because people, well, it's maybe well-meaning people, but they'll come together and just put something together that they say it looks good, this should work, and they have no experience in terms of teaching K through 12. If we want to look at somebody up north, Browning Nadu at a Chico State, is real good. He was an elementary school teacher. Now he's at higher ed, and he field tests his curriculum. So, and I think he's the only one besides us that actually field tested California or American Indian curriculum to see, okay, is it going to work or isn't it going to work? How are non-Indians going to react to, I don't know how you could put historical trauma in a 4th grade class or, a 3rd grade class. It's something that we have to look at. And again, that's one of the issues that my wife is looking at in terms of developing her curriculum. So, 4th and 5th grade, but never think that you're overstepping. You're not, you're a parent. You pay taxes, it goes, just keep on hassling them and hassling them. But again, if you have concerns, you can go and email my wife at CTA and she can help you look at that issue. But
district.
Do you know what district they're in? Oh.
We can talk about it on the side, Robert.
Okay, no problem. All right, I'll let somebody else talk. Okay, thank you guys.
I'm not trying to silence you. I just now have the information and we can follow up on it.
Oh, okay, no problem then. Okay, thank you.
Great. You can also, where there's opportunities for speaking and education, sometimes we get invitations, and I know tribes do too, to speak on some of these issues. I know I'm going to be speaking with one of the Catholic high schools in a couple weeks to talk about the legacy of Catholicism, which should be really interesting because I went to Catholic high school and I know how they teach that stuff. So I think so that's what I mean is I think where there's opportunities to bring in different perspectives, because kids don't always get that. And the people who tend to teach in these places tend to be the same people who went to these places. So there's not a lot of different ideas coming in. And I know local tribes are always happy to come in and provide a bit of a different perspective. And I'm sure, in the Sacramento region, generally, I'm sure that there's a handful like, Wilton, UAIC, Yocho would probably jump at the opportunity to be able to, talk about Native people in a modern context. Other thoughts at this time? I know Chairman Tortes had a raised hand for a minute, so I want to make sure if you still wanted to say something that you have the ability.
Yes, thank you, Christina. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, and I appreciate everything that my cousin Robert Levi is saying, and we're very proud of him for as a Torres Martinez member and excelling. He's a prime example for our students and our kids at the local school. But what we're doing is I talked to Assemblyman Ramos and Assemblyman Garcia, Eduardo Garcia, and they're coming to our school on Saturday to talk to the school board, because we've been having issues, just like my cousin Robert said, that the school, they've been reluctant to implement this curriculum at the high school level even. And so we finally got, Assembly Ramos to come down and talk to them and inform them about their cultural awareness, because I think that's, in our district, we've been having a lot of violence with the kids. We're 4% of the entire school population, but still, this was the indigenous land that that everyone knows, and they need to learn that. And I think that would dispel a lot of the the separation that we have in the school, especially the high school. But in answer to some of the other responses that we've had, I think if you reach out to your assembly as members, and Christina is a good resource also, making that informational debut at the school. That's excellent. But I think that's what it takes. It takes education and our local legislators to come down and help out with the school district, and inform them of, the importance of this cultural awareness. Again, I just want to thank everybody that's on here, and I just like to reiterate, I have, hundreds of cousins that are unrecognized because of the, statutes that were imposed, 100 years ago, when you had to sign a piece of paper to say, okay, you're a part of, this tribe or that tribe, or they took the census and you had to be recognized in the place you were. And that's not how a lot of, our relatives lived. A lot of them migrated, a lot of them moved around, so you couldn't be pinned down to one place. And then that, with the local land and the repatriation is another education level, because Palm Springs, Indio, this whole entire Coachella Valley was once, the Kuya Nation. And now we have to repatriate and enforce our, repatriation, because they try to get away with as much as they can by just, plowing over stuff before we get there. But again, all of these things need to be educated as far as the high school and the school district level. There's a lot of education that needs to be had in order for, healing to take place. But again, thank you, Christina, for allowing me the time. And thank you, everyone that's on here, providing comments and helping us with this truth and healing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Robert, did you want to say anything? Or just saying hi?
Oh, no, I mean, knowing the area and I don't know how many Southern Californians are on here, but in Southern California, we're a little bit different than Northern California, but the issues are still the same in trying to get the public to know that we're still around, and they have a responsibility to our children. And that's the push of getting this curriculum through. And I'm glad that Assemblymember Ramos is coming down to make a point across as an assembly member. He's our representative up here where I live in Altaloma, California, by the Ontario Airport, and he's the 40th district rep. So and he's tireless to what he tries to do. So again, yes, I would encourage any one of you who's on this to contact your assembly member from your district. And also, I think Assemblymember Ramos has put a bill in, or the bill went through I can't remember the number of it, but that you should have tribal consultation. Your district should come to your tribe and ask them about, how can they fit into history or English or even science, and just bring some tribal members in to talk about, this is what we eat. This is what, going around of what the tribe wants to let the people know, because sometimes there's some things that we don't want them to know that they shouldn't know. And I've come across that a couple of times in educational presentations that my father or grandfather would say, no, you don't talk about that. So, you ask within the tribe also. So, and again, we're moving in the right direction. And again, I can't emphasize how much education we will be the healers of this trauma that's happening with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, you have a hand raised. Patrick, did you want to say something?
Yes. Hangom Hamuheji. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Burt. I'm an enrolled member of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, also a direct descendant of the Tule River Tribe. I currently serve the Yochadihi Wintun Nation as their tribal curriculum writer. So this entire conversation really revolves around a lot of the efforts that are happening in the Sacramento area, particularly with the Yolo County Office of Education. There is developing efforts, I would say, also with the Solano County Office of Education, but there's a real push for acknowledgement, at least, of the real need for an injection of the cultural proficiencies that pertain to Native American history, Native American culture. This, of course, is going to be a real task because, as we all know, the diversity that lies within Native nations, within California in itself, is vast. So this is a real undertaking, and I commend a lot of the other people that are involved in this work, because in my position now for about 8 months, I've encountered a lot of the challenges and a lot of the barriers even to advancing this work. So as I said, I would like to commend everybody else who's involved in curriculum development as it pertains to us really taking our place in our rightful place, even in the K through 12 and even higher education. If there is anybody who's interested in being involved, I can leave my information in the chat.
That would be great. And I think that we'd probably want to reach out to see if you would be interested in working on that education subcommittee along with Robert. Gino, would you like to say something?
Yes, happy to Kasuga Takwa. Me too, Gino Altamirano. Hi, I'm Gino Altamirano. I'm a descendant of the Chilhini peoples. I'm also a member of the Coastal Band Chumash Nation. And I'm sorry, I just want, well, first I want to say thank you to the council for allowing me to speak. I just was able to jump onto the meetings. I'm not certain exactly what the comments now are, or if they're just general open comments regarding this process. However, something that I've been thinking about is, this body has been having meetings since I think December of 2020. And of course, the executive order came out June 2019. And so I've been thinking about all the discussions and the listening sessions that have been occurring. And I'm just curious to know and would suggest at some point there would be some draft document that captures all these thoughts and these concerns and these concepts so that we have something in writing to be able to work with in terms of moving forward to some final living document that captures what the work we're doing here. And I find it a little concerning that we don't have that we don't have a written record of all the work that Indigenous folks, advocacy, Indigenous folks have been doing here in this process. And so that's something that I would highly suggest and recommend. And I'm certain that that is what's probably going to occur at some point. However, there's been quite a few listening sessions, there've been quite a few meetings, and it will be really good for us Indigenous peoples to have those thoughts, those concepts, those ideas in front of us so that we can have something to use to move forward the discussion. And I don't even know if there's a general idea of what a document, a living document, at the end of the first day, what that would be, what that would look like. So I think that that's something really important for this process. In addition to a lot of this stuff, or what may come out of this effort, may actually implement legislation and regulations, which would also fall under the regulatory process, which has a whole separate proper noticing requirements and input and workshops and all that good stuff. So that's something I just wanted to share because I was looking at the website and there's no resources in terms of any document that has collected the thoughts of the Indigenous peoples over the last year and a half in the work that we put into this. And I think at some point it might be good that the state starts thinking about that it would be good for us to start drafting something, call it some document, so that we can use as a tool to move forward. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I think that is the intent. And I think there are some resources that have been capturing the aggregated comments as this has moved forward. And those are all available in the listening session reports by month. And so those will detail what was said when and kind of what those ideas were. But we are also in the process of having our deliverables subcommittee start sorting through all of those comments and thinking through what would be good to pursue and think about more to develop a real recommendation of like this that needs to be a regulation that needs to happen, or this needs to be a law that's changed, or this amount of money needs to go toward doing this sort of restoration type of work. So it is in process, and we'll continue to keep you all posted, and really appreciate all of your patience and that you continue to come back again and again and tell us your comments, and really just again appreciate all of the thought and time and effort that goes into that. Loretta, would you like to add anything, or anyone from the council?
No, just that yes, it is in process of compiling all of the comments that have been made, and we're thinking through a way to be, I guess, to compile that information in a useful manner, like whether that be some sort of like, I don't remember the word, Christina, the thought bubbles that we were talking about, perhaps on the website.
We wanted to make a tree, but
yeah, yeah, it's like a tree with all the main themes of what has been discussed. But again, I really appreciate that feedback, and we are in process of compiling everything that has been said in these listening sessions and putting that into a format that will be accessible to folks, so that you can see the conversations that have happened and build off of those.
And what those potential recommendations are in real time that have been vetted and approved by the council as they get vetted and approved. So we're just in kind of the organization process of pulling together all of what's been said in those listening sessions and pulling together the main themes that need to be addressed in real time. There will also be a final report that we're in the process of contracting to get someone to start thinking about how to pull that all together. But again, all of that will be consultation informed. So it's probably not going to look like how it's going to look in its final phase, because it'll be kind of, again, a living type of evolving document for the council to be thinking through. And then the last piece is, ideally, we're also thinking through an outcome digital asset that's a lot easier to navigate as well. So like kind of a web-based way to sort through both what is brought up to the council as primary source oral histories or primary source documents from tribes, but also, the recommendations and everything that comes out of this process. So again, still in organization mode, but we will definitely keep you all posted and really appreciate the input. At this time, because we're getting short on time, I do want to go through the updates presentation very quickly. And I'll skip through the part where we talk about how we talk to each other, because I think everybody's doing okay for now. But the Cliff's notes of that is that we want to maintain a respectful atmosphere where we're able to talk and discuss ideas and think through how to best get to where we need to get to, and understand that we're all trying our best in this space. So very much appreciate all of you continuing to go in this direction as we move forward. And I'll start with the overview of the agenda. And I'll share my screen right now. Loretta?
You're good.
Thank you. So we're going to very quickly go through an overview of the council and its charge, the March Governing Council meeting agenda, the March Hybrid Quarterly Council meeting agenda, and then some of the subcommittees and outstanding request needs that they're thinking of. And then we'll then go back into listening and discussion. And in the process, I'll show you all, if you are wanting to come to that hybrid quarterly council meeting, there's one day that we are trying to have as open to the public as possible because it will be outdoors with a lot of space. And then another day that will be less open to the public, but the council will be able to attend in person because it will be indoors and less COVID friendly, but we'll go over that in a moment. So the Truth and Healing Council is a California Native American-led initiative that aims to clarify the historical record of the relationship between the state and California Native Americans by bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native narratives in the spirit of truth and healing. It's led and convened by the Governor's Tribal Advisor and governed by a governing council of California Native American leaders, and can also include additional non-voting representatives from California Native American tribes, relevant state and local agencies, and other relevant non-governmental stakeholders. It will submit a final written report of findings to the Governor's office by 2025, And that should reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state. It can also make remedial recommendations and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. These recommendations will be considered and adopted or developed by the council in real time. So what I mean to say is, as we're sorting through all of the comments that have come in so far from the listening sessions and consultations and other documents that have been submitted by tribes, Native Americans, and stakeholders, we're pulling out those recommendations that look like they're responsive to the charge of this council, its jurisdiction, and what it could do to remedy the injustices that have been inflicted historically on California Native peoples. And that will go through first the deliverables subcommittee, and then the deliverables subcommittee will either say, we'd like to follow up on this because it looks like it's promising, and we'd like you to do a little bit more research and see if we can do this. If it looks like it's shovel ready because it's been brought to us by someone who has thought critically about all of the different pieces that need to be put into place at the state level for it to be enacted, then it may be already ready for green light, which means it would go to the full council for adoption and approval. Once it's adopted and considered by the council, it'll be populated in that space in real time. So we're trying to think through what that looks like, whether it's, you know, a word cloud that's populated in real time, or whether it's recommendations that are a bit more user-friendly. But then also the council itself can develop recommendations. So if it hears from a number of Native people that, let's say, for example, land is the critical issue here because, you know, we identify with the land that we're from. That's where we have our spiritual practices. That's where our people are. That's where all of our stories are from. And that's really where we identify with. And so when we don't have that access to, connection to, real ability to be unrestricted in the lands of our people, we have real problems. The council can then think about, well, what can the state do to remedy this, and what are the barriers here that we see at the state side for transfer or ownership or the like, or what are the barriers that we see on the tribal side because of these historical issues, whether it's capacity or funding, or, you know, we need more help navigating legal systems and creating legal structures to be able to do this. So the council can also develop recommendations at its own initiative based on what it hears from the community, as well as outstanding problems. They can also be recommendations to improve policy, legislation, or funding for California Native people. But they can be other recommendations too. That's not exclusive. And really, they can be recommendations that aren't necessarily just directed toward the state, but are also directed toward Californians generally. We know that the state is a major critical piece of this, but the feds are also a critical piece of this. And then also Californians generally are a big piece of California Native people feeling invisible and feeling like we don't exist in the land of our forebears. So the council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation. And so participants are encouraged to attend and observe all meetings of the council, submit written statements to the council, make oral statements and testimonies to the council, participate in interactive dialogues, panel discussions, and informal meetings, and organize and host affiliate events on issues relevant to the work of the council, and also join the work of the subcommittees. And just for the benefit of this group, we're going to be working with the governing council to think through kind of an across the board process for nominating, self-nomination, or nominating folks to subcommittees, so that that's just a bit more organized, and that it's a kind of across the board where folks will get nominated to those subcommittees, and then the subcommittees will choose to say yes or no. There'll be an across the board sign off by the full council, and then those folks will be official members of the council. Non-voting council members who are members of subcommittees. And that's also why we're in the governing documents, we have pulled out the governing council from the bigger council because they are the governing body, but that's why we've been using that language a bit more, so that we can make sure that we're being accurate, but also making sure that we're not having people feel like they're not a part of this process when they are. If you're a tribe, we are doing initial consultation meetings, and where you don't have time to do a meeting, we're also happy to take written consultation comments, even if it's just a quick email. Really what we're looking for right now is what tribes have currently that they'd like to submit to the council, what their needs are outstanding, so that we can think through how to allocate some funding resources that are available for California tribes and communities and individuals to engage in this work. And then if there are tribes that are basically like, look, we've done this already, we'd actually like to speak with the council about what we've already prepared, we would love to talk to those tribes as well, and can think about how to plan meetings around those presentations as well. Outside of tribal consultation, this is an open conversation, so we welcome meetings, engagement, and the like with interested individuals and organizations. The council is currently seeking to conduct interviews for Native oral histories, particularly from elders, and can provide you with assistance in providing submissions. Please contact us at info@catruthandhealing.com, expressing your interest in submitting an oral history. And then we can talk through whether, you know, if you've got an iPhone and you just want to capture it yourself because the elder in particular is more comfortable speaking with you, we can give you some questions that it would be helpful to ask and some tips on how to capture those stories. In the alternative, we can also come down and capture those stories as well. So we just want to make sure that we are making it as easy as possible for folks to be able to submit. For 2022, the Governing Council is continuing to meet on a monthly basis to conduct business, which is virtually until the end of this month, at which time open meeting waivers will expire and we'll have to then have more in-person engagement with the council. The next meeting is going to be this Friday from 1 to 4 on Zoom, and you can also stream it at YouTube as well. Regular quarterly council meetings and hearings are beginning this month as well. And the first hybrid regional meeting of the council will be on March 17th and 18th in Sacramento. This meeting, again, is our first attempt after 2 whole years of COVID and lockdown. And so I think to the date, actually. So it will be us trying to figure out how to re-engage with each other in a safe way, and also utilizing some technologies that are pretty new at the state level in order to conduct hybrid meetings. The agenda for this Friday is similar to how it usually is. We'll have a welcome, roll call, traditional opening, council member updates, and then we'll go over the quarterly meeting so that everyone knows what to expect. And then we'll have subcommittee updates and community input. Where members of the community have particular issue area input, we advise you to come for those different pieces of the agenda. So if you have something you'd like to say about education, we encourage you to come and submit your public comment during that time. Where you'd like to talk a bit about the youth council, you can submit your comment at that time. And then we'll talk about the next meeting date and topics, and then have general public comment, which typically will start at 3, but depending on how many other public comments are on the agenda for specific issue areas or subcommittees, it could start a little bit later than 3. The agenda for the March hybrid meeting will start, there's an optional event at Sutter's Fort State Park, where the State Parks Department will have a site visit and listening session to explore interpretive changes and how they tell the story of Sutter's Fort to be more inclusive of the awful history of what happened to Native people there. And so that will be an option for folks that are in town already, council members that are in town already, and that's open and a public in-person meeting. That doesn't require pre-registration. So it's something that is open and available, and we'll be posting additional details on that as we get them. Then Thursday, the 17th, we'll have from 9 a.m. to noon, the Truth and Healing Council Talking and Listening Circle at the future site of the Indian Heritage Center in West Sacramento. We'll also be streaming that and have online Q&A, and that will also be an opportunity to get an update on the Indian Heritage Center and how it's developing, and hear from that task force as well, and how that project can potentially interact with this project. We'll then have lunch on site, and then we'll have for the public some primary sources and Native exhibits available, and those do require pre-registration. It's self-viewing and self-study, and so for those of you that are interested, we would like to get a heads up just so that we can let folks know at the California Museum and the State Library how many people they should be expecting at that time. And then on Friday, the Truth in Healing Council will have a hearing at the California Natural Resources Agency auditorium. This will be completely streaming and online for most participants, and in person will be limited to the council members, invited guests, which will include Sacramento region tribes, and who am I missing?
Us and staff. I think those.
And staff, but that's it,
Panelists.
right?
And
Yeah.
panelists.
And panelists. So it'll be very, very small group of people who will be there in person, and the bulk of this will be streamed and folks can engage online. If there are tribes and Native peoples who would like to submit testimony but aren't going to be in person, we'd also appreciate if you could reach out to us at that info@catruthandhealing.com to let us know that you would like to do that, just so that we can plan for how long we need for public comment and for those submissions to the council. And in general, hybrid meetings and hearings, this is just kind of how we're approaching the next few quarterly meetings and hearings. They'll prioritize the local tribes and Native peoples of the region for participation. So for in-person participation, I mean. So for each meeting, we ask tribes a number of questions, like, do you have any suggested or proposed speakers to present the story of your tribe or the region to the council? Speakers can be elders, tribal historians, trusted academics, or anything really. Is your tribe interested in providing an opening blessing or thoughts? Would your tribe or representative like the opportunity to tell the story of your tribe in different areas of the listening and talking space? How many individuals will attend? Is there anything about your tribe that you'd like highlighted for the general public? We are happy to provide links to cultural centers, businesses, web presence, and want to make sure that we're highlighting the local tribes of that region. Would your tribe or any of your tribal members like to host any affiliate events, which can include nature walks, dinners, cultural center open houses, can even include, wine tasting or anything, whatever your tribe does, because we know that, it's kind of everything. And would your tribe like to provide any digital content? So if there's anything like original primary source scans that you'd like the council to see during this time, are there any videos that you've all prepared that you'd like to show for the council and for the general public? We are happy to highlight those resources. In addition to quarterly meetings, the council will hold regional hearings throughout the state. And so if your tribe, organization, or institution would like to host a regional hearing, or if you have a topic you'd like to cover, if there's a specific incident that is regional and cross-cutting, we are happy to engage and have those conversations so that we can set up a meeting in your area as well. The subcommittees that are currently stood up by the council are the academic partnerships, funding partnerships, which is in the process of creating a community fund to help the community engage with the council. The Youth Council, which had a first virtual meeting in January and will be hosting a second virtual convening at the end of the month. So we'll send out those details as soon as they're available. The Status and Identity Subcommittee, which we are still seeking someone to mediate those conversations. The Education Subcommittee, which you heard from a bit today. The Deliverables Subcommittee, which, as I mentioned, their charge is to make sure that this council has action and actually delivers on the promise of this council. And so they are putting together those real recommendations for changes in policy, law, funding, et cetera. And then the Elders Subcommittee is seeking additional elders to serve on their subcommittee from throughout the state. And again, is also seeking submission of oral histories. So where there are elders programs that you think could very easily accommodate an oral history project, we'd love to talk to you as well so that we can help you or help you stand up your own oral history project for submission to the council, or we can come and get those oral histories as well and conduct those interviews. So I'm going to stop sharing at this time and we'll go back into listening and discussion. But actually, I do want to share two more things very quickly just so that everybody sees them. And that is some of the resources on the website and also the registration page for the in-person portion of the March meeting, quarterly meeting. So I'm going to do that very quickly. And that looks okay, Loretta?
Yeah, you're good.
So I'll start with home. This is the landing page for the Truth and Healing Council. It's tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC, and we try to keep the graphics current. Right now, and again, Loretta did all of these and they're very beautiful and she did a wonderful job. So great job, Loretta. And so all of the information for the next couple of meetings is on this graphic, but you can also follow some of these links and information here. So you can get upcoming meetings and listening sessions at this link. You can go to the registration link for the in-person participation at this link. And then this is the same link as this one, but we'll just leave it at that. If you go to the meetings page, we have stopped archiving past meetings and just have them all on the meeting page. So we have all the listening sessions here and the recordings with all of the reports. And the reports are an easy way to get kind of a snapshot of what was discussed in those meetings. But as I mentioned, we're also keeping track of all of the comments collectively, and that's for consideration by that deliverables group. And then if you are not seeing the month, it's because it's probably on another page. So you can search, let's say you didn't have one in January. So let's say August, and then you can see all of those. If a summary is not up, it's because it's not been completed yet. So we appreciate your patience. We are a mighty staff of 3, so we will put them up as soon as we're able to vet them and finalize them. And then we've got listening session dates and times that we update as we have new dates and times, and then also the meetings. And we've also got the registration link here as well. So I'm going to go over to the registration link. And this is the registration page for March 17th in person. And this is the site where it will be with pretty much the setup that will be there. And we encourage you to register as soon as possible, but in any event, no later than the end of day on March 11th, which is next Friday. And we are prioritizing it. So first will be Governing Council and staff of the California Truth and Healing Council, then California Native American tribes and individuals indigenous to the Sacramento region, then the California Indian Heritage Center Task Force members and the Native American Heritage Commission members, and then California Native American individuals living in the Sacramento region, California Native American serving organizations and institutions in the Sacramento region, California Native American tribes and individuals living outside of the Sacramento region, and then academics related or supportive institution organizations and media local to the Sacramento region, and then kind of a free-for-all after that. If you can see, we are prioritizing California Native peoples that are not traveling too far, but this is a California Native initiative. So if California Native peoples do want to travel far, we will be just making sure that there are vaccinations, which will be required for entry to any in-person elements. And then also, so proof of vaccination, and then also daily electronic self-attestation forms filled out to make sure that everybody is healthy and safe, because we do have some elders that will be present and we want to make sure that we're not putting them at risk in coming to these meetings. So register as soon as possible. If you think you might not fit in the priorities, everybody's fits in the priorities, so you'll get sorted out once everybody has registered. And as long as there's not a million people, most people will likely be able to attend if they want to. Loretta, should I be adding anything, or is that about it?
No, I think you covered it. And yeah, again, try to register as soon as possible. We'll be posting on our social media some reminders for folks.
Great. So at this time, if there's further public comment or any thoughts that folks want to talk about at this time, we're happy to listen. And we've got some links in the chat as well. With all these efforts to Indian Ed programs, we need to have some types of check for all the money that will be allocated. Plus, who is training the administrators, principals? This should be us, California Indians, but limited competent individuals. Great comments. Gina, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, actually, it's a question. The two meetings, or the listening sessions, or the in-person meeting, the next day meeting, it says on the website the 17th will be streamed. Or this, yeah, the 17th will be streamed. Will both days be streamed? Will the entire meetings be streamed, or?
Both days will be streamed. Both days will have an interactive element, and Loretta will be manning the chat so that we make sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's great. So folks who can't make it out or aren't able to attend, then they have that option. Thank you.
And we will have that information updated on the meeting page, and we'll send that out to the listserv as well. So anybody who wants to join virtually does not have to register at that site. That's mostly for people who want to attend in person, just so that we can make sure that we're prioritizing properly and not getting too many people. Additional comments, questions, thoughts at this time?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Gino again. I apologize. So I just want to emphasize again, and going back to what I commented initially about, moving towards creating a draft document that captures at the end of the day, whatever this living document is that will embed what it is, what our concepts and our ideas and our thoughts about truth and healing. What I wanted to really stress, which I didn't mention before, is the fact that when we have these different committees, you guys have these different committees, and then you have the main body, and there's discussion that there will be eventually recommendation documents coming out. And I could not see these documents being drafted only by committees and the main body, but rather with very, very close consultation of Indigenous peoples and community from the various committees in California. And most usually when those types of documents are drafted, there are workshops, working sessions, drafting sessions. I think calling these meetings to date just listening sessions, I think kind of cuts out half of the work, which is actually coming together as a body in a workshop and discussing line by line what each sentence means and what it does and what its intent is. And I think to rely solely on just the committees in the main body to do the vast majority of that work, I think will really cut out a vast majority, many Indigenous peoples and entities and tribes and nations, and that may not be the intent, but without these working sessions to draft whatever the document it is going to be called at the end of the day, the first initial draft, I think it will be very, very productive and will really be beneficial to Indigenous folks to be able to be a part of drafting those documents. So that's something that I really wanted to stress. You know, when you have city governments, county governments, when they draft policies or plans that affect cities and unincorporated areas of the county, you know, they call upon the citizens to come in and draft these documents with them so that the interests of the citizen, you know, is there in the document. So I don't see that any different here, that it's important. And I think at some point, stop having listening sessions, but rather start having workshops to actually get those concepts laid into whatever this document is going to be called at the end of the day. But thank you.
Thank you. We definitely appreciate that. And I think that that is something that we can meaningfully incorporate into the process as it moves forward. But I don't think we'll stop having listening sessions. I think that we'll probably add working group sessions as that document comes together. And we're just trying to get some folks in place to help staff that. But do really think that that's a great idea, and are hopeful that we can have more kind of collaborative in-person even types of those sessions, even if it's on a regional basis. Other comments? Questions, thoughts, Robert?
Yeah, isn't what he's talking about, isn't that going to be part of the deliverables subcommittee? I think that's what Mark was trying to get across as, you know, what can we do first? And then down the line, what, you know, where we're going to be at the last part of this meeting. So I guess we'd have to get that deliverables, the subcommittee looking at what we're talking about in terms of the other subcommittees, and maybe just, you know, do a running document. And like, you know, like we said, you could use the listening sessions for them. But again, you know, it's the time factor. There's only 3 of you. And yeah, it's going to take some time to get, I don't know how many listening sessions we've had, but we've had a lot. So, you know, that's something that we could look at, or you can bring up tomorrow or Friday at that the whole council meeting, maybe just starting to look at what the deliverables subcommittee needs to do. I mean, that's what I thought Mark was trying to get at. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think he's really focused on those like action items that like can come out of this process. And so like, I think he wants to make sure that we're not having a group that spins its wheels and there's like a lot of thoughts and feelings that come out of this and then no actual like, you know, recommendations that mean anything come out of it. So I think it's part that, and then part like, what does this report even look like? You know, and I think that's part of the whole drafting piece, which we're trying to get someone on contract to help facilitate. So we've got pieces that just need to come together, and it just takes some time. And I don't think COVID has really helped just in terms of having to be in 5 million different places at 5 million different times, but also not be able to be in person. So we will continue to try to get those pieces in place. And I think that process of collaborative and meaningful integration of and meaningful just drafting and opportunities to be taking a pen to this, I think are exactly what we hope to have that person or group, or even if it's the deliverables who wants to be taking the lead on that do. Because also with the subcommittees, all of our council members also have limited time, and this is their, you know, 10th job, some of them. So we want to make sure that we're also using their time meaningfully and making sure that we've put someone or a structure in place that can be kind of writing all of this down, taking all of the listening session notes that we have and kind of consolidating it in real time.
Yeah, and again, one point when I was at caucus for CTA, the American Alaska Native Caucus, we just made recommendations, and that's what this council is doing, right? We can recommend and suggest legislation and action being done, but it's only a recommendation, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm just trying to let everybody know that, you know, we're highly suggested, recommended, we deeply, and that's what this council is going to do. It's not writing legislation, or hopefully it will influence the politicians in the state of California to look up what we're doing, but again, sometimes, and I was included in that, they're just going to listen to us so they could say, okay, it's a good idea. Or it's like, okay, it's the Indian saying something again, we'll put it in the back burner. We'll get a committee to look at the committee, to look at what we're doing. So again, you just got to be careful with the expectations we have and coming up with a perfected document that represents what, you and Loretta and Mike have been, and the council members have been doing is just, I think so far, so good. So far, it's been awesome. Especially knowing Christina and Loretta, your workload. It's just, I don't know how you guys do it. But anyway, just another idea. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, and I think really the goal here is also to have meaningful recommendations that are informed by, Loretta and I understand how some stuff works on the inside. We'll have some, input from probably the legislature, like the Ramoses of the world, to kind of figure out how can we do this stuff? Because we don't want to have recommendations that are shooting so far for the stars that they don't land anywhere. And then we're back at square one. And so like, what are things that feel doable in the realm of the reality of how complicated and bureaucratic this state has become? And how can we kind of disentangle that and navigate it in a way that feels meaningful with the long game in mind, but also like, how do we get there?
Yeah, and hopefully, Councilman Ramos will be there for us because, he's coming up for, I think, election this year, isn't he? So, we got to get him back in there because he's been just a total, if not just 100% advocate for California Indian legislation. What he's all done with what we need to do and in the political field. So, hopefully he'll be there. And if not, we got to think about someone else to help us get all this legislation through. So talking politics.
I'm sure it's fine. He just taught the new California Native Caucus. He voluntold a bunch of other legislators to join, and then he taught them all a bird song. So
probably the hummingbird song. That's his favorite.
It was the hummingbird song.
Yeah, that was my mom's favorite song. So okay, just ideas.
Well, so he will have a lasting impact regardless on what he decides to do next. And he will also, he has said that he wants to come to the in-person meeting. So for folks that are there, he'll be there as well. And really what we're trying to do on the governing council level is also have some opportunity to talk to policymakers and legislators to think through like how are ways that this work can meaningfully can make recommendations that feel easy to take up by those folks. Comments, questions, concerns? A good example, I think, yeah, I would say a good example, I think, was the document that came out of the AG's office on ICWA implementation, because that's actually something that the state uses to inform budget asks and policy moves. Like that whole CDSS, Office of Tribal Affairs, is based on that ICWA document that came out of the AG's office. And so I think, you know, documents like that are consultation informed, but also, you know, have real grounding in how the state works and how it can change to better serve Native communities, I think is at least a good place to kind of start. Though, you know, this is an opportunity to kind of like unstate everybody's brain too. So it'll be fun. I think this will be a fun process. Right, Loretta?
And we did have a question in the chat from Gino. Is there a deadline the council must meet coming up anytime soon? And Gino, I don't know. So there's the overall deadline of 2025, but if you want to, or Christina, if you want to take this, I'm not fully understanding.
That's it. That's the main deadline. And really, that deadline is to make sure that there's some accountability here, but not Native people being accountable to the governor. Obviously, that would be like the worst thing in the world, but we wouldn't frame it like that. But I think just making sure that there is something at that point that says like, hey, we're just, skimming the surface, but here's a lot of other stuff that needs to get done and we need more time to do it. So we want to, have this be, again, a continual iterative process where we continue to craft these pieces. But that's the only real like major deadline I would say is 2025. So we are running under a clock because we've got consultation obligations that we've taken on under that executive order. So we're trying to make sure we're talking to as many people as possible. But again, that's hit some snags with COVID. So I don't think that we want to amend the deadline too much. I think we may add, though, that there's like more time to be able to do a final report, and that, that initial report sticks at 2025.
This is Gino, if I may. I'm looking at, so I was curious because I'm looking at the executive order 1519, and it does order the council to produce one report draft findings to the governor's tribal advisor on an annual basis beginning January 1st, 2020. And then of course, the second order is the January 1st, 2025 final written report. I wasn't certain whether or not the draft findings, which the governor ordered to have reported yearly, if we're up against that deadline, or if you're up against that deadline, or if that's passed, or if that's been reported on annually yet.
The benefit of how we've structured this is that we're pretty much constantly in touch with the council, so it's less of a. I will say that we aren't requiring the council to provide us a written report annually. And I don't know that that would have been possible given the constraints that everybody has been under for the past few years. I think that once we do have someone to assist with the report writing, then we may start having an annual report requirement where we say we want this in writing so that we can see an iterative process. But I don't think that we want to put more pressure on it than has already kind of been hanging over everybody so far.
So might be suggestible, because the impetus of this came from the people, the indigenous people, to the governor, who the governor then created and ordered this body. And the importance of having those annual reports plays into all of the work, the reason why we are here today. And maybe the solution is to just, go to the governor and say, can we extend these dates out? Because the work is massive. And getting these reports, which are really important, these annual reports are really important. And they weren't ordered by the governor. Might be good to maybe even, this may be a resolution to that, to just extend the deadline and allow for to allow more time for the final written report, pushing the date back, therefore allowing you guys to focus more on the annual reports, because I really think that those annual reports are important. And I understand, in all due respect, I understand the workload and the resources and the lack of staff. So I get it. We're dealing with a bunch of state agencies who are in the same situation, and we're saying the same thing. Okay, well, if there's a big workload or there's little resources, these issues, that it's not pressing for us to solve this, to get a final document right away, because it's such a big issue. So what we may need is more time. So it's just a suggestion or food for thought on that matter.
Thank you. I think we really appreciate that. And I think the advantage here is that we can probably do that at any time if it feels like we need to. So we've got a very collaborative governor who I think wants this process to work for Native people. And so I think as we kind of go into this strange new normal where we're trying to figure out how we work together and how we collaborate together in an endemic world where we're constantly kind of dealing with COVID looming over, we'll just emphasize the need for flexibility, and then we can always go back to the governor and see what adjustments should be made at the suggestion of the community. So we are at time, and I don't want to keep people from their night activities. So if anybody has, if the council members have any final thoughts at this time, please feel free. Okay, looks like Councilmember Harper.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for participating in the meeting tonight. We really appreciate it.
Councilmember Bojorquez.
I would just reiterate that. Thank you everyone for your time out of your evening from your normal routines and your families and your loved ones. I hope that everybody is safe. Shururu, blessings to everybody. Thank you again and look forward to seeing you in our next meetings.
Great. Well, thank you all. Thank you, council members, for joining, and we will see you all on Friday. Take care.